So I would like to call the first study session of 2025 for the Adams County Cultural Council to order. Zoe, would you call the roll, please?
When I call your name, please say here. Joyce Downing,
Here.
Aaron Vega,
Here.
Erica Hernandez, Emily Burr, Jim Toll,
Jim, you're muted.
Jim Toll. Let the record show that Jim is here. He's just muted. Larry Dunn,
Here.
Susan Beta,
Here.
Carrie Lang.
Here.
That concludes roll.
Thank you. All right, Dana, would you like next on the agenda? Dana has a statement to make, and then I will follow with one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we dive into business, I would like to thank the council members for their time and commitment to the SCFD, the county, and the arts, science, and culture community. I would also like to thank any organizations or members of the public who are joining us today for their time and dedication. It is important to remember that as an official council of the county doing SCFD business, these meetings are public and anything we say today reflects on the council, the county, and SCFD. As we move into discussions, I ask that we contemplate the 3 core guidelines that SCFD believes are imperative in conducting a welcoming, productive, and professional meeting. Be respectful of people, organizations, of opinions, and of time. Be positive, assume best intentions of each other and of grantees, and be present, own your experiences, participate, and engage. While this is a reminder to the council, it also states our values and expectations of this meeting for any visitors that are here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I will now read my statement, and it's a note to council, and then there's a bit to the public. So all council members should have their own Flux portals up to follow along. We will not be screen sharing today. Discussion will take place for each organization and category applied for, and will be guided by the SCFD 2024 rubric. Please be courteous on the virtual platform. This is an open discussion, but we'll call on any hands raised by council. And just as a note on the side there, I don't always see the hands, so Zoe will help me out with that. Council members, please keep your cameras on throughout the discussion. There is not a scheduled break, but we will suggest one about halfway through the discussion list. And then a note to the public. Study sessions are open to the public for observation only. Organizations will not have the opportunity to comment. Please keep your cameras off and yourself muted. Study sessions are recorded. Recordings will be available within 2 business days on the Adams County Cultural Council website. So with that, we'll just dive right in. And our first organization is the Palletiers Art Club. So I'll just open up the discussion. Does anyone have any comments? I'm sure I know everybody has reviewed these, so I'll just open it up for anyone that wants to jump in. So I don't hear anyone right now, so
Go for it, Joyce.
okay, and I was just going to say, I was just kind of noting a little bit, and the Palletiers have been in as a home community organization since 1961. So that is wonderful, and I applaud them for being here with us and providing the services and the art and the culture to our community throughout all these years. I know there's been a lot of changes and things, so I just wanted to throw that out before we get started. So we have hands, or okay, there we go, Aaron.
I can always be counted on to kick it off. Hi, new council members. It's great to see you. Thanks for letting me be here. Just a few things I noticed. One, thank you. Any group that is actually in Adams County, it's wonderful. Thanks for making Adams County your home. Because they've been around for a while, there were a couple things I noticed. They're a little, to me, a little light. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. A little light on their metrics tracking, how they view attendance and all that sort of stuff. So it's just something I'm curious to see how they move forward in the future, and how they because I'd love to know more about those that they serve. It just helps us as we're reading through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. And I want to applaud them in terms of just going down. The poem collab to me was a great example of a way to pivot. They're thinking, they're doing art, they're also collaborating with other groups, and I just wanted to shout that out. I thought that was a beautiful way to sort of bring more collabs in and to bring more of an audience in. So I think that's great, and I love that they're very local and very accessible.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Anyone else?
Well, this may be more for Dana, but when I went through the SCFD thing, and when it comes to their financials, they have a red flag. Have they cleared up the issues? And I'm sorry, but my camera is going to keep going off on its own for whatever reason it does that. Because I didn't see anything in there that said, had a big red flag, but it didn't say anything that
Right.
all that had been cleared up and addressed.
So one of the things that we look at when we kind of give them a red, yellow, or green is their reliance on SCFD funding. And so they are projecting that almost 50% of their funding comes from SCFD. And that is the reason why they are red, is because their financial dependency on SCFD funding as their overarching funder.
Okay, just curious.
Jim, I was also seeing some notes in there about deficits. Things were just unclear in the financial statement, which I think might raise flags too. That their P&L is different from their application, which is different, and that just raises flags potentially.
You know, and Aaron, to that point, as I was going through the grant, they did have an explanation about the deficit and the difference between the P&L and the grant application. So there was some explanation there.
That was my explanation to help you all.
No, it was in the grant. It was in
Okay.
the grant. So from the organization.
Susan, do you have a comment?
I don't know if you have an official raising of the hand button on here, but I just raised your
You're fine.
Okay. So I was just a little concerned about their explanation of DEI stuff, equity and inclusion, and if there's any active effort being made on those fronts.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I've got a question for Dana, going to the DEI conversation, because it might come up again today. Does SCFD offer workshops for organizations? You offer wonderful workshops for those of us on council. Are there are there resources for organizations through SCFD to learn more about some of those things that the questions we're raising, especially around DEIA or EDIA?
That's a great question, Aaron. Thank you for that. To answer your question, no, SCFD does not do any capacity building or capacity of any type. We just don't have a budget to do council and the public. I mean, that's kind of it's on the councils or the organizations to seek those opportunities out there. And then for clarification, Joyce and Aaron, my apologies, I was a little unclear. What I meant was I was clarifying the fact that they did, because they had a discrepancy between their final grant report and their grant application. That was what I was explaining in my summary.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So as a piece of feedback with that in mind, if they're listening and they're present, I know they can't comment, but it might be a great opportunity to Susan's point, might be a great opportunity to potentially educate themselves. And there's a lot of really amazing resources out there if they are curious or confused about EDIA and what SCFD seems pretty clear about what they're looking for. So it might be a good learning opportunity.
Thank you. And for me, just to add on to everyone's point about financials, it is pretty evident that there's only 3 major contributors, to this organization, and this would probably be a good time possibly to look for other funders or other grant or fundraising opportunities. So I think that would benefit them greatly. Is there anything else about concerning the Pelletiers? No? Okay, we'll move on then. And the next one is Thornton Community Chorus. So I'll go ahead and open the.
Joyce, can I interrupt before we?
Sure, sure.
Is there and this may be for Dana or Zoe, is there a rationale for the order in which we are going through these?
Zoe actually put the list together. I'm sure there is the rationale. I know that we were going through for the GOS and then the smaller, let's see, Zoe, I'm not going to try to answer for you. So go ahead and do that.
That's okay. We are reviewing home county organizations first, small to large, based on operating budget size. With one exception, you might notice Boulder Opera is number 15 on our list tonight. They are not a home county organization. That was just an admin error, but given we had sent out the list, we'll go ahead and review them. And we will continue to do Adams County organizations next week. And then we'll go to all the other organizations and go small to large again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. So with that, we'll move on to the Thornton Community Chorus.
I was I'm not particularly struck, but I love their presentation. One thing I try to do is go to websites, the different organizations' websites as much as I can when I am reviewing their application. And it just so happened that this group has a YouTube channel, and they have a lot of their performances on there, and it's just a good way to grab you. So that I think helped me grade them perhaps a little more favorably than I would without having seen that.
Oh, thanks, Larry. Anyone else?
I'll bounce in here. Sorry, I'm reading notes and then sliding my screen over
Mhm.
trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, to that point of using technology to their favor, I thought they specifically mentioned QR codes on their survey cards and things. We hand out survey cards when they're talking about qualitative and quantitative metrics and data and all that sort of stuff. Hand out survey cards, provide access to surveys through QR codes at our events. I think that's a really easy, accessible way to use technology. I think a lot of folks do have cell phones now, and if folks are experiencing difficulties, it's sometimes easier to use technology like a cell phone to scan a QR code. So well done on that. I think that's great. In terms of education, the fact that they're highlighting their training seminars, I thought was fantastic. I love that they're pointing out that they're singing in other languages. It could be good for them potentially to dig in a little bit more of the conversations about the cultures they're singing in, but they are providing bilingual posters, which I think is great. I was surprised they don't have a project grant. So again, for a local group, I think maybe they didn't have a project and they're just looking for GOS, but I think that's an opportunity. Yeah, and I noticed that SCFD, again, to Dana's point, was over 50% of their budget. So some things just to flag there. And again, we're looking really quickly at these applications. So for the folks writing these, thanks for the narrative. It gives us really, links are great. Anything to help us get a very quick picture because we read hundreds of these. But certain things, especially the financials, do get flagged. So just pay attention.
And just as we were reading the grant, I made a note to myself that they did draw out the fact that they had a planned deficit, that they were covering their admin costs and they were purchasing new pieces of equipment. So I like the idea that that they put that out into the, and then they are right now they're paying the only payments, I think, for contractor, if I'm not mistaken, is for the director and an accompanist. I can't even speak today. Sorry about that. But I like the idea that 66% of their activities are in Adams County. So that's awesome. And they do have considerable almost 7 months of reserves. So, and Aaron, I could be wrong, but I believe that the only type of grant I've seen from Thornton Community Course is a GOS for some reason throughout the years. So I think that's true.
Even with 60% of their programming happening in Adams. So
Yeah.
you might be leaving money on the table, Thornton Community Chorus. You might be
Right.
leaving money on the table.
I think there's a couple organizations that do that, for whatever reason. So any other comments? No hands? Nothing? All right, we will move on then to Brighton Music Choir and Orchestra. So I'll just kind of start this. As I was reading through the grant, I
Carrie.
thought it was.
Just, sorry, Joyce, when you're done, Carrie had her hand raised. It was just.
Oh, I'm
very
sorry,
brief.
Carrie, go
Yes.
right ahead. I didn't see you. Okay, go right ahead. I think you're
Okay.
muted.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, sorry. So one thing I really appreciated about this grant is I think they took a lot of time to clearly define what they do for evaluation, and the way that they measure the impact. I thought that was really nicely laid out and pretty thorough.
And a strong endorsement for bake sales. which beat QR codes in my book, but
Okay. Anything else?
Sure. I've got a couple of things, and I'm curious
Okay.
to get council's thoughts on this. There were, w- not to kick, I was going to say beat a horse, but I don't want anybody to get mad at me for saying that. The EDIA conversation, there's a couple phrases in here which I'm just curious about, that I think they might benefit from some training. Maybe they've had training, just using phrases like many skin tones, things like that. It'd be nice to see a little more nuance in the conversation. So I think I understood what the grant writer was saying. Um, but some demographics about the makeup of the group, how you're singing, using different kinds of material, and you're actively soliciting and trying to find members with different world views, I think is great. So just pay attention to maybe some of that phrasing there. Because similarly to what Susan mentioned earlier for another organization, I'm not sure that the DEI standards are getting to the heart of the issue a little bit. So there could be a little bit of room, in my view, there could be a little bit of room for improvement in that. But I will say I like so roses and thorns, right? So some places of improvement potentially. Their surveys, I kind of love that they're passing the plate. It's very old school, but I think that's kind of fantastic and very community oriented. And so I think that's neat. It's hard not to donate when the plate is going right in front of you. So good job using social pressure. I think that's great. Um, for their project specifically, project one, it felt a bit like a mash of projects. I'm not trying to steal Joyce's platform here. It felt a little bit like multiple projects sort of packaged into one. I understand why they're doing it. It's not the worst I've seen. But just know we are sort of clocking that a little bit. Do the projects feel cohesive? Do the projects make sense? Because on this one, you do have multiple locations, different programming. I'm noticing there's sort of no admin expenses. So again, I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm just clocking that people cost money, and on your budgets, there aren't admin expenses, which is interesting. High travel expenses, which I'm sure there is a reason. So anytime we can get clarity on those things, if you read it through as if somebody has never read the grant before, and you might flag some of those things as you're writing the grant before you submit it, and use some of the opportunities that SCFD gives you on this application to provide clarity. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Aaron. Anyone else? No? All righty. Then we'll move on to True Souls Art. Okay.
well, I'll start with some clarification. It notes that they are based in Broomfield, but there was a change of address that put them in Adams County, which now makes them they're administratively homegrown. So did I get that straight? Or because I noticed right off that they're based in Broomfield, says based in Broomfield, but then it goes and says they've got a new address. I can't find it here, which I assume is now in Adams County. And I got confused because Adams County's got some Denver addresses. If you look at the mailing address, it says
That's true.
Denver, but it's the unincorporated parts of the county.
Mhm.
In our part of the world where it gets confusing.
Yeah. And I read that also, and I do believe they did move, you know, so that they now are in Adams County. At least my understanding when I read it. Let's
My
see here.
apologies. Is this on Symphonia True Art Soul?
Yes,
They are a newly eligible organization. This is their first application.
okay. But we were with I don't know if you caught the discussion about the address, though. They are in Adams County. Correct? Dana?
She is shaking
Sorry,
her
if you
head,
didn't hear my head
yes.
shaking, I was saying yes. We are
Oh,
at-
I couldn't, okay. Between going to the portal and then looking at you, I couldn't tell what was happening here. I'm sorry. So.
I'll raise my hand here, Joyce.
Okay, all right.
I wanted to applaud them on their narrative. Being a new organization, I don't know much about them, and again, for folks listening who write these grants, we get a limited amount of time with each grant. We're going through a whole bunch of them. So that narrative is really important, at least to me, to get to understand the organization and what they're about. And there was some really great I wrote teaching moment for me. The change of the description from women's choir to being a treble choir, and how, you know, their dedication to inclusion and all of that. That was something I had never thought of before, and it was a really cool sort of, oh, that's neat. They're really living this and acting on this. So it was just a great moment for them to really express their values in that way and help me get to know their organization and what they're about. And so the rest of the application put in the context of the narrative, because we read that first. It was a really nice thing. Well done. I liked the inclusion of their in-kind corporate donations in the additional info section. So obviously they can't include in-kind. I think that's correct, Dana. In-kind isn't allowed in their budget. But yeah, she's nodding her head. They're nodding their head yes. So, but they can explain how they are getting corporate donations in air quotes. It's just in kind. So that was great. That was great for me, because I look at their budget breakdown and I don't see any corporate sponsorships, and I typically would think, oh, that's a great opportunity for improvement. But they are getting them. They're just getting them in different ways. So thank you for using the application well in that. Yeah, I love the project. You know, they've got good cash reserves, all of that. The first project, demonstration that a passion for choral singing can be pursued throughout an entire lifetime. And I thought that was, I think it's really great. They're really highlighting the age ranges of the people in their chorus and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, thanks for bringing it to Adams County. And I think it's, yeah, there's a lot to celebrate there.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay,
Any,
yeah,
Go
I'm gonna jump in, Susan. So I thought this was a nice and strong application, particularly for somebody who's just applied the first time. I think what I would suggest to the group, though, is that when I read a mission statement, in my humble opinion, it should be like one sentence, one strong sentence. And they wrote this whole paragraph with, totally appreciative, lofty, view. I mean, I get it, but really, if you're doing an elevator speech or a mission statement, if you could just be like, this is what we do, boom, one sentence. Then you can say, well, our vision is this or whatever, but it's just my thought. Thank you, Aaron. That's just my thought, to be a little more concise, because I find that to be much stronger representation.
Thanks, Susan. And kind of tag along with that. I too, I came away from the mission statement as a bit confused, where I thought many of the points that they had in the mission statement should have belong in a project, and actually describe the project. But it definitely elaborated on what they do and how they do it. It's just maybe a little, uh, I don't know, a little bit of maybe education or, a little bit of training on how to write a mission statement might help them help them a bit, so. But I really enjoyed the entire project, where they had the day-long workshops, and then it culminated into a festival type thing, and everybody was able to join into it. So I really thought that was good. And I think the Mountain Range High School kiddos probably really enjoyed it, so I thought that was pretty interesting how they put it all together, the process of the whole thing. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go. I just wanted to reiterate Susan's point about the elevator pitch. That would have been so much stronger a statement, I believe, if she had or if they had decided to just shorten things up a little bit. It would have packed more of a punch, let's say.
Right. Right. Thanks, Larry. Anyone else? Just one other thing that I kind of enjoyed, that they're using some of their funding to actually use some new original works from local artists and composers in the area. And I really thought that was a great idea. I'd really like to see if they could expand on that a little bit, and how they maybe are searching the local composers out, and just exactly how they do that. It kind of triggered my interest.
Could I just add just one little tiny thing? Because when you spoke about the mission statement, it kind of made me go back as a new organization to see what they had put on their eligibility application. And in fact, it was one sentence. Because I did notice that they approved a new one in January of 2025, so it is slightly different. So I just want to make that a point to the council, is that I think your comments are spot on, because it was one sentence at one point.
Yeah,
Thank
this is something that if people have heard me yammer on for the last 2 years, this is something that I bring up a bunch. I think what folks sometimes do is they have their mission statement, but then they're trying to put as much information into that box as possible. You have the whole narrative. So the mission statement is great for us to get to know it, so that we can go into the narrative with your mission clear, because it is a big part. It is one of 5 questions for those folks that are curious about that. I mean, mission statement and clarity, and how it informs the rest of the application from our standpoint. It's one of 5 questions, so that's a pretty heavy graded portion. So
Thanks, Aaron. Is there anyone else? All right. So we will move on then to Thornton Community Band. I'll get to my portal here.
I could start on this, Joyce, if you're okay with that.
I'm still looking. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it takes me a bit to open up the new one and do all that.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to applaud them. Mentorship is a big part of making sure that we have another generation, a next generation of artists. So not just opportunities to see shows, but how do these students and young players get better? And mentorship is a big part of that, honestly, in anything in life. And I think it's something that is often overlooked. So kudos to them. They made it very clear free memberships to select high school students, and the students are personally mentored by during band rehearsals. So they don't just throw them to the wolves; they actually mentor them through the rehearsals, and I think that's a really great way to make a next generation of artists. Great cash reserves. I thought they highlighted their partnerships really well. So
Anyone else? So when I was looking at the grant, something that jumped out at me, which I appreciated, was the fact that they created some subgroups of the band to accommodate smaller community functions and events. And I thought that was very proactive in their thinking. And they're also sponsoring a Colorado this year. I don't know if it was highlighted too much, but anyway, I saw that they were sponsoring the Colorado Community Band Festival at Metro State College, which also I thought was very good. I think they have a very healthy and strong collaboration among the different groups.
I think they made a pretty strong statement with their EDIA statement,
Mhm.
the way they put it together, especially I noticed that a lot of organizations do not approach the second part of that question, and that's when it comes to representation on the board, the staff, organizations like that within the organization. So it was good to see that they addressed it, and there are others who do so just as strongly in this round. But I was impressed by them.
Anyone else? All right. If I don't hear anything else, we will move on then to Northland Fine Arts. Oops, wait a minute. I jumped over one. Commerce City Cultural Council. As we pull it up. Okay. So Commerce City, let's see, they're asking for 2 projects and GOS.
yeah, I can dive in here, Joy. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Carrie. Carrie's raising her. Oh,
Okay.
she's fixing her hair.
So is it Carrie or Aaron that we're gonna hear from?
Carrie. She's
Carrie.
going for her mute button.
Oh, okay.
I'll jump in. Is that
There
okay,
you
Carrie,
go.
if I jump in? All right. Tiny screens.
Right.
The again, high percentage of SCFD. It is something we clock. They were rated yellow, which is not the end of the world. It's just an awareness of that. They did have strong foundational support, which I thought was great. And thank you for highlighting that and seeking out those funds. We are looking at whether there is whether there's a balanced sort of contributors list, right, between individuals and corporations and sponsorships and government funding and SCFD. So SCFD does an amazing job for us laying that out as we're reading those applications. So just so folks know, it is pretty black and white how we how those of us on this panel see that. So I'd encourage anybody to try to diversify their funding streams as much as possible. It just makes you look real slick on this. For project one, yeah, the idea of making sure that the summer series is an event where you can bring the whole family, I think that's fantastic. I like, dance the night away, meet new people, make new friends. I got a sense of who the folks are, who this organization is, and who the people are behind it. And I appreciate in project two, the comment about last year, their attendance and how they're hoping to continue to grow it, and they're looking for ways to grow and find new audiences. So, all right, Carrie, any luck? Sorry.
Sorry, I do not know what is going on with my phone today. I'm usually not this technical. I'm not great with technology, but I'm not usually this bad. All I was going to say was I noticed that they have quite a few community partnerships. It seems like they work pretty hard in having diverse organizations that they work with, building those relationships. So that was nice to see.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Me. Um,
Come on.
it's been a long time since I've tuned into Commerce City, and I was just happy and proud to see this strong application. I thought their DEI was really strong, and I think that whoever wrote the grant really was pretty thoughtful about it. So for me, it was really lovely to see Commerce City getting so kind of together. So well done.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
One
Anyone
more
else?
quick,
Yeah.
sorry, Joyce, one more quick
No, no.
thing. Again, using the application as an opportunity to explain some things, because this is our shot to know these organizations. The posted deficits, we have notes on that there have been deficits the last 3 years, things like that. So it would be great to learn more about that. So as folks are writing their applications, we encourage them that if they read it as if they've never read it before and they have questions, there are opportunities on the application to provide clarity for those of us that do not know your organization intimately.
Very good points. Any other comments? All right. With that, we will move on now to the Northland Fine Arts. And they are requesting, let's see, we have 2 projects and GOS. Anyone want to jump in, or?
Go ahead, Carrie. You can just jump in too. You definitely don't have to raise your hand if it's easier for you.
I'm a rule follower. So
Oh.
I liked that they are working to include ASL into their programming. I noticed a lot of grants really are trying to provide things in English and in Spanish, but it was nice to see another language represented, or an attempt to make it more accessible for those who use ASL as their primary language.
All right. Anyone else?
I've got some roses and thorns here.
Okay.
On this. First of all, thank you so much for putting your mission in the mission box. Really appreciate that. Um, the history, the history section is interesting, and I'm always fascinated at how different grant writers use some of these questions and all of that. But again, giving us a succinct view, understanding of the organization in context, right? It's a great opportunity for you to provide some context. This particular history, I got more of a sense of their process and less about their history. So that was just my view, but it might be an opportunity to look at the question a little more, and maybe there's plenty of time to give us your process and plenty of time to give us other stuff. But the history is kind of important to me because again, it gives me a chance to take a nice little snapshot of your organization. I thought it was really lovely. They're junior chorale members. There's a section in their bylaws about junior chorale members. Again, the next generation. They are very important. So bringing in young singers, I think, is a great idea, and adding it to their bylaws. I'm curious about this and other council members' thoughts on the statement. They have a statement about social media recognizes no prejudice in its reach to its audiences. I'm a millennial, so I'm aging myself here. That's not my experience with social media. That with the algorithms, that it does actually show extreme prejudice based on their algorithms and what they're trying to show and their marketing platforms. So I'm just curious. I'm curious about that statement, and that might be worth looking at. And I'm so glad Larry's going to jump in on that one. Just give me one more second. For the project, I'd love more details on project one. The marketing is great, but I'd love just a little more meat on the bones for me on what the project is. And it's interesting that Project 2, the administrative costs in the budget are much lower than Project 2, and it seems like a very similar project. So looking at them back to back, I'm sure it makes sense. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm going to lead with kindness and generosity here, as Dana said, or whatever the phrase is. I'm going to assume best intent. But again, there are some questions there in the project. So for folks writing these applications, especially in the projects, as much detail as you can give us, of course, succinctly. You only have a certain number of characters probably, but that help us understand the project. We know your mission, we've learned about your history, and then the projects are in that context. So if that helps to sort of pyramid your writing in the future, that's why it's structured that way.
Okay. Thank you. Larry? Did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in a little bit about the social media. I noticed that phrase too, and it just brought to mind what they used to tell us about the Army. You get out of it what you put into it. So social media left to its own devices, left to I believe its natural development. Like you said, Aaron, it can be highly prejudicial. It encourages tribalism, like, on a scale we've never seen before. But it can be, of course, used for good, and I think that's kind of the point they were trying to make. So I noticed that, and I would beg for a little more clarity on that as well.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. I just want to mention, especially with Project 2, they're just slightly over our cap. I don't know if that will be amended or not, but it's just a slight difference. So, And I do like the idea of the way they are mentoring the students and bringing them into the shows and letting them actually experience some theater as they're growing in their education and their music. So I do appreciate that, and I really did like, and I noticed that too about adding the junior choral member into their bylaws. I thought that was wonderful to do that. It's all about mentoring, I think. Anyone?
Their request was amended down to 9911.
Thank you. Yeah.
9,911.
Yeah, I saw that and I went, oh, it's just a bit over, so.
But it does raise questions, Joyce. I mean, when I'm seeing groups posting surpluses and they're very heavily dependent on SCFD, financials and all that we look at pretty closely. So
Right.
surpluses are great. Surpluses are great, but yeah, raises some questions if there's a lot of ask from SCFD and they're getting surpluses. That's all.
Yeah. And I did note that too, Erin, that they are extremely reliant on SCFD. So we just, encourage them to do more fundraising and just take a look at the various and variety of different opportunities that may be out there, that they may be able to do some more fundraising. So. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we will move on to Thornton Arts, Sciences, and Humanities, Tashville. Am I hearing something? So I'm hearing background voices, so.
I think that might be, it's pretty light and faded, but I think Jim's the only one unmuted, so. Jim, do you want to kick us off then, since you're unmuted?
No, I was going to go silence the background.
Thanks, Jim.
I can kick us off while other folks are sort of reviewing their notes, if that's okay with
Yeah.
you, Joyce.
No, that's fine. I was doing the same thing here, so.
Again, I want to applaud them. The excellent use of technology. Geofencing, I think, is a really powerful tool. So well done, especially trying to get metrics of where people are coming from. All of that. Head counts are great, of course. Surveys are fantastic, and all of that. But this is another layer, which is really sophisticated and great. In my view, in terms of tracking metrics, because then you have lots of data to pull from, and you can sort of get a clearer picture of your event. Great evaluation numbers. This in 2024 we served 385 students, 1 to 87 years of age, and I just again give in a sentence, giving us a snapshot and a view of your clientele and the folks you serve. And I thought that was really great and succinct and wonderful. And the section on the Dia de los Muertos celebration growing by 25%, showing us that they're really moving forward. Juneteenth celebrations, Thornton Pride, really embodying those DIA, those practices, and I think that's great. How do you put it into practice? And I think that's often more powerful than certain statements. But we are doing X, Y, and Z, and so I applaud them for that. was interesting. I noticed a major drop in projected earned revenue. I'm not sure if other folks saw that. I didn't see an explanation for that. Maybe I missed it. But again, a little clarity on that could be nice in future grants. Um, this is a question for the group. Project One, it almost read as if SCFD is funding the purchase of art for Thornton's permanent collection. Um, and they mentioned small gallery improvements. Is that capital improvement, which would make it ineligible? I don't think that's what they were saying, but that's how it sort of read to me, that they were taking SCFD funds and then purchasing art for Thornton's permanent collection, which would be an asset for the city. It was interesting. Project Two, I love that they're dabbling in ticketed performing arts series, so I think that's kind of nice, bringing in some revenue there, and I think that's great. Obviously, we want to make sure things are accessible, but you know, times they are changing, and a little ticket price could bring in some extra revenue. Um, yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. And you know, I picked up on that also, Aaron, as far as the purchase of the art, and I was wondering about that also. I just was a little curious if that, I don't know that that's capital, but Dana, maybe you can enlighten us a little bit on that.
There was another section about capital where they were talking about using funds to, or they were talking about making improvements to their gallery. So I don't,
Yeah.
but
Right.
again, they might not be using SCFD funds for that. They might be using their own funds and SCFD funds for other things. So, but it did provide a little it was a little confusing for me.
Right.
To answer your question, buying of art using SCFD funds is not allowed. But to their defense, it didn't say that SCFD funds would be used for that. Am I hearing that right? I mean,
Yeah.
are we assuming that they're using the funds, or is it explicitly said that they're using SD funds to purchase art? That would be my question.
I think I'd have to go back into the grant and look exactly how it's, but I did also write something here about, and they are, the residents are voting on the art and their favorite pieces, and then those pieces will be displayed in the different city facilities after purchase. So, and this is my notes that
It is visual arts by chance. And I apologize. I was
I
sidetracked for a second.
Well, I'll ask the question. I mean,
Yeah.
so they're purchasing art. They just forgot to make it a visual arts project in order to do that. I mean, help me. My mind is saying we allow the purchasing of art. We've got somebody here is purchasing, I think, 3 large statues. But they made it's clarified as an visual arts project. So some
So-
clarification for this confused old guy here.
Yeah, you know, I'm wondering if these are actually paintings that they're referring to versus pieces of sculpture, you know, so I really have to delve into the grant again to clarify myself.
The sentence that I'm looking at says the largest expense, 75% of the total budget, is paid directly to the artist and includes stipends for installation, teaching, and purchasing of art for Thornton's permanent art collection.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so it sounds like visual arts, and that is acceptable based on your guidelines. That they're basically paying the artist for the art. It's not they're going to some kind of studio and buying art off the wall and then relocating to Thornton.
Yeah, but it does say that they're purchasing it for their permanent collections, which goes, I think, back to the original question. If 75% of the budget is used to purchase for the city of Thornton's permanent collection to be displayed in city space, again, they might not be using it. I noticed they're only asking for $10,000 for this program. They might not be using SCP funds, but it does open up questions which could probably be easily answered. So I would encourage them to, that's all.
Can you,
Yeah.
and I apologize, as you all know that SUD staff doesn't necessarily read the details of the grant. So is this one of the projects or is it the
Correct.
visual arts?
It's a project,
It's a
yes.
project, okay. Yeah, if it's a project, that's a little different than the visual arts because visual arts says that it must be, I think according to your guidelines, and Zoe, you might want to confirm this, but according to the guidelines, it must go into permanent versus a temporary. But for a project, that makes it a little different because at that point, it feels like it might be like a capital purchase.
Yeah, and their second sentence there, same project, is other expenses cover food refreshments for opening night receptions, supplies for each community class, marketing efforts, small gallery improvements to enhance installation and display, which to me reads as capital. So capital improvements. So there's a couple of question marks that I've got on this.
So what I will
Right.
do offline is I will read it if I need to take it to the rest of the staff to come to some kind of conclusion and then let the the organization as well as the council know whether this fits into that category.
Okay.
If that's helpful.
Because yes. As far as the project goes, it is through the year. It's January through December art exhibit.
So I don't really understand the relationship that they have with the city of Thornton, and it was some reference to funding from Parks and Recreation, and you know, the SCFD funding that they're requesting is larger than any other funding partner, including the city of Thornton. So I would go along with this idea that it's not appropriate to put in full-time permanent pieces into the collection through this project.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, according to SCFD, the way that we look at the organization is an agency of local government. And we have talked about this over the years, and this happened way before I joined SCFD, which is the local governments that are located in Adams County, they also have a nonprofit arm, and the nonprofit arm is kind of like the funded. They're the ones who are doing the request, but it's ran by the city, so it's complicated. And so this is technically pretty much city ran, but they do have a nonprofit board that oversees the projects or the organization or the projects and the activities that TASHCO does. So from the standpoint of SCFD, this is considered an agency of local government, but the way it's organized is way different than if you were in a different county, if that helps.
And so for me, Dana, you're going to offline read the project one and let us know if it's eligible or not. And then you'll let us know as the commission, and you will also contact, if it's not, you'll contact Thornton. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I just need
Okay.
a little more time with that.
Yeah, just making sure, you know, so we know. Okay, and just to, you know, as far as roses go, as Aaron puts it, I did enjoy the music series, you know, that they're putting on in the 4 locations. I think it's their first ticketed series that, you know, so they're trying to, I think in my mind, trying to gather information and data to determine if possibly they can move forward in possibly looking at other avenues to perform art in Thornton. So I thought that was a good idea to do. Anyone else? All right. Next, let's see. Well, we are at going on number 9. Does anyone want to take a break before we move on, or shall we just move on?
Let's keep going.
Keep going?
I'm gonna
All
listen. I'm just gonna fill up my teacup. So I'm listening to you all while I do
No
that.
problem. Okay, we will move on. So the next one is Melody Musical Theater Group, Theatrical Group. So with that, I'm going to open up the discussion once we find it in our portal here. So
I just have a, sorry, late,
Susan,
Dana, Dana, the Tashco, SCFD summary doesn't say whether it's red, green, or yellow. It doesn't say what it is.
Considering that, I will give me 5 seconds and I'll have an answer for you.
Okay,
well, you know,
Sorry.
and Susan
you were
also,
done with that. Sorry.
no, that's okay. You know, many times, Dana doesn't have it hasn't gotten to that financial summary yet to submit to us. So we may not see all of them when we're reviewing the grants,
Well, it's
until later, so.
It's on there. It just didn't say the color.
Oh, is it there? Because I couldn't even get mine up.
I read it.
Yeah,
Oh.
it wasn't selected. There, all the options are there. It wasn't whittled down to which color it was. So I will check.
Okay, it's not a
Okay.
big deal. Just wanted to mention.
No problem. Okay.
And I'm sorry, everybody, I have to jump off, but I will see you all next week.
Okay, Carrie, it was good to see you.
Carrie,
You too. Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Are we ready to go with this one?
Larry, go ahead. I'm still trying to pull my information up. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I noticed is that project number 2 is scheduled to run this fall. Is that eligible?
If it's after October, I mean, let's see. So
Starts on
project,
October 6th and runs through December the 20th.
right.
That is acceptable. We put in October 1st as kind of like the start. So so we are accepting anything after October the 1st.
Okay.
Well, let me jump in and in this, on the GOS, they say that they are using the money for scholarships and improving ADA compliance. And that raised a red flag with me. That's very different than buying art for whatever. Scholarships and improving ADA compliance. We've nixed wheelchair ramps and the giving of instruments to students for a prolonged period of time. And to me, that's what I was thinking when I read that. So I'm curious.
Jim, thank you for bringing that up. And I was wondering about that also. I think we need a clarification of just exactly what they are anticipating and improving for the ADA. If it's capital or just exactly what they're doing.
I'm just gonna step in real quick. When we see the word scholarships, it typically means an offset of tuition or membership or whatever. So it's SCFD funds can't be used for past, or in other words, they can't take SCFD funding and give it to child to pay for their tuition, but they can use it to offset a fee. So if the fee was $100 and $50 was provided by SCFD, it means the kids are only responsible for $50. And so when we typically see sponsorships, that is 99.9% of the case. Scholarships is kind of a loose term that people use, but it really means offsetting. And then I want to understand better, Jim, when you talked about, because I'm looking at the grant now and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, is it the heading of accessibility, improving ADA compliant facilities?
Yes.
That's what I noted. Yes.
Yeah, it really doesn't say what they're using it for. So I wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that they're going to use it for capital. And if they do, they still can use up to $10,000 of it. Just keep
Okay.
that in mind.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think yeah, well, we don't know. Okay. But that just kind of jumped up, but for me too. The
Joyce,
other thing,
oh,
sorry,
please.
thanks, Aaron. For project 1 and 2, I'm a little confused about it, where at least where it's describing, it looks like it's identical, describing the different benefits in both projects for the benefits of Adams County. Did you? So I'm just a little confused about that.
You're not the only one.
And then also, what holiday are they celebrating? So I'm just confused about it. Definitely confused. So Aaron, maybe, do you have a comment?
Yeah, as always, in case there's folks from this organization listening, and you know, we're here to support, we're here to help. So offering our feedback. So no, this is not personal anyway.
No,
Again, we're reading these things. We have a very short amount of time, this application, to get to know you and get to know your programming and all of that. So there were a lot of questions that I sort of saw as well. You know, there's lots of overlap between your staff and your board, which, you know, it's a young organization. Totally see that. And hopefully SCFD can sort of help. I saw that they are actively trying to find a treasurer, a professional, to help them with some of the financial things that they're going through, which I think is great.
right?
And I hope that search goes well. I really liked that they acknowledge because I think this is their first SCF, they're newly SCFD eligible, I believe. They've not achieved any grant money yet, but I like this. We feel strongly that we should be able to run our programs with a responsible bottom line before asking for financial support. So I see what they're doing in terms of their history. They use their history well of saying, hey, we've achieved all of this. Kind of acting like an LLC. Now we're eligible, so we're gonna start turn this in. Since this is one of your first grants, it sounds like I would just encourage you all to give us some clarity, and maybe have somebody outside of the organization read it first before you submit it, and that might give you some pointers on where to offer more clarity, things that are confusing. On project 1, they're listing their rehearsal space as a location, which is interesting. I don't think that means that they're going to charge themselves for the rehearsal space. Like I'm looking at their budget, and they do have, you know, site rental and all of that. This has come up before. I think they might just be showing that they're rehearsing in Adams County and they're performing in Adams County. But by listing their venue, their rehearsal space, to me, it makes me wonder if they're sort of charging, if they're adding that to the budget, which is kind of an interesting thing. We've run into organizations try to do that in the past, and it has not gone well. So there's that. Again, I'm sure that's not what they're doing. I think that they're just highlighting that the rehearsal space is in Adams County, but it is a little confusing in terms of the venue addresses where they're performing. Yeah, so are they charging for their own rehearsal space? They've got $5,800 listed for facility expenses. I'm assuming that's going to the school rental, but and yeah, project 2 is a carbon copy of project 1. Should they package it? I mean, I get why they did it, and actually kind of nice. But for this one specifically, because it is the same program, just a different time of year. Yeah, is this more GOS than anything else? So.
And I noted that project 2 is this year in October. October 25 is project 2. Project 1 is then next year.
Right.
Which that just didn't, And I was going, well, it would seem to me if you're doing this in October, you ought to have a pretty good idea of what you're performing at this point in the game. And it would be nice to get that information as to, you know, are you doing a Christmas Carol or you're doing something else? And it seems to me they ought to know that by now, particularly if they're doing it this October.
I would say that I had some concerns about the both projects being so similar in the budget and everything. So I would encourage them to take a little more time to differentiate a little bit more granularly, and that's kind of to Aaron's point too, that you can't even copy the exact verbiage in each project. You kind of really need to
Right.
tailor
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Anyone else?
But kudos to you for getting certified, Melody Musical
Right.
Theater Group. Well done. Thank you for being in Adams County. Looking forward to reading next year's.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Next on the agenda is Life Art Dance. They're asking for GOS and 2 projects as I look for it. Okay.
I can jump in really quickly. The work they're doing, again, giving me a really clear sense of the organization. The work they really highlighted their work with isolated and elderly communities, and I thought that was really interesting and cool, and again, very creative use
Mhm.
of dance and how they're interacting with their community. So I thought that was a lovely piece of the narrative that helped me understand them better.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, taking and breaking down barriers, taking art to different venues, going different places. I know there are lots of organizations that are starting to do this in the entire metro area, um, and I think it's just it's a neat thing. Um, and kudos to them on the new social media manager position. It's nice to see when an executive director doesn't have to do everything. That's really impressive and cool.
Larry?
I was just going to say real quick, I thought the fact they had distributed funding sources was great, different kinds of funding. That was great too.
Mm.
Yeah, this is another group that I felt was very strong on their DIA. Very detailed in how they plan to go about it, both in including audiences and in their hiring and volunteer practices as well. So kudos for that.
Anyone else? I kind of noted that in their surveys, they're providing them in Mandarin as well as Spanish and English. So I think that's a great asset for their community. And they're bringing back the haunted house again. They said they noticed that everybody enjoyed it so much, they're bringing it back. So there's a lot of collaboration with those art organizations. So really like it.
And their addition of live music, making that a priority. I read that section, and it's fun to see those collaborations where I think last year they were saying we're gonna try,
Hmm.
and this year they're going, it went really well. We
I
would
know,
like to
they're
make that a
going,
pillar.
wow,
We've now got
wow.
a you've now got a resident live, and we're really shooting for the goal of all live music. I thought that was pretty fantastic. Just seeing the growth year over year.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, from what they're saying is they want to change the theme totally. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works. Anyone else? All right, hearing or seeing no hands. We'll go on to the Westminster Community Artist Series. And they are asking for 2 projects and GOS also. As we find it in our portal. All righty. Any comments at this point?
Is this called something else? I'm having trouble finding it. I know I had it.
Westminster Community Artist Series.
North Metro Arts
North,
Alliance.
thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Thank
Mine
you.
came up as the Westminster too, but that's good as long as you find it.
I found it. Thank you.
So I'll kind of jump in here. One of my concerns that I have in some of the grants that in Project 1 for the education and the arts, it's an extremely broad title encompassing in the way I'm reading it, 7 different projects, distinct projects throughout the year. And we just look at having 2 projects being funded, and I just feel that there's some standalone projects in this particular request. So I'm just really concerned about that.
Well,
Does
I
it-
Yep.
share your perspective, Joyce. Quite, I read through that, and you got 14 separate projects. You divide them into 2 groups of 7, and you now have 2 projects with, or 2 umbrellas for covering. Essentially, if you read carefully, what I read is 14 distinct different projects going on, and
Mhm.
which I confess I've had enough on my plate that I didn't get back to how do we define a project. And clearly I need to get back and read that, and maybe we need to be talking about that
I
in the
will tell you
future.
in just a
Move
second, Jim.
forward.
I can just read it to you. It's a restricted grant to support a specific event or connected set of activities with beginning and an end, explicit objectives, and a predetermined cost. That's it. It's basic, it's simple, and it obviously is up to interpretation. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
description.
sorry to cut you off, Zoe. Yeah, it's the connected events that I take a little bit of issue here. It just feels all over the map. So if somebody's, you know, if you've got a year-long you know, fine art series or something, that sort of makes sense, you know, if they're in the same world. So I would just, again, this is a learning opportunity theoretically for folks if they want to if they want to listen in. Um, Boy, oh boy, it just felt like seven. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is the category that of question that most affects for you all? Do you know what I mean? Like where does that sort of land? I'm curious. I want to ask some more of the council members when we run into that, what do you think it affects in terms of our 5
So
categories?
for me, Aaron, I look at operations and strategy, especially the strategy part of this, you know, and just to, if they're listening, it's not that I don't appreciate everything that they do. I mean, it's a wonderful organization and they provide a lot of opportunities for the community, but I think it's our guidelines that we have to adhere to. And I think was I think most all the organizations except the new ones know that we just look at 2 projects, an ending and a beginning, and a standalone type process. I will say that I have probably seen, and not to pick on anybody, none, but different organizations have very, very similar grants and projects written this way through several years. So that also makes me think that maybe we need to visit, with some of the organizations and say, hey, this is what we're looking at and what we're doing, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just really quickly, some couple other things that I flagged. I just felt like the budgets needed a little more clarity. So I'm seeing when I see things like $12,800 in an other column, I again, I'm going to assume best intent, but there are opportunities to explain that, and there probably is a very good explanation for it, but I don't have it in this grant. So that was a flag for me. And then the other was there, I think it was somewhere around $34,000 dedicated to salaries, as opposed to contractors. So, is it there's city staff liaison? Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly? No? Okay. I'm
This
getting
is an actual nonprofit.
This is.
501c3.
Okay. But in a project to add that as opposed to GOS, right? So I'm looking at that and going, okay, for a project grant, I know that there are hours and you have to pay people. But I feel like if most of your budget is going towards salary, then that's a GOS request, general operating request. So that's the way I view it. Other folks might have other things, but if somebody from this organization is listening, I'd love to see more clarity in the budget.
As a teachable moment, when we talk about organizations that obviously do a lot of programming, that it can go into salary as long as the programming, it kind of goes into the programming. As long as the programming is done by that staff, they're allowed. Now, to your point, it is rather high, but we don't dissuade organizations from actually having, salary into those, injecting salary into those projects, because obviously they take time to plan and to program. So I see both. I see your point, Aaron, but we don't tell organizations that if it's heavy, then it's a ding on them. Sorry.
Yeah, understood. I look at when I look at a budget like that and I see a giant chunk for other in revenue, and then I see a giant chunk in salaries. Yeah. And are they asking for GOS as what?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just It's something, I would like to see more clarity in the budget, that's all.
Yeah.
But thank you for the clarification, Dana.
I would agree, but I just assumed that they took the percentage of their staff salary and put that in there. And that's what the staff salary was, but the other thing did get me. I didn't mind the percentage of the staff salary allocated.
It kind of makes sense if they have like 7 activities in there. I mean,
Right.
that's
It's so
probably-
much of their work that whoever is the program director, it's like gonna be half of their salaries. Anyway, but yes, I too noticed that it's like, wow, this could be 14 or 7 different projects. So
Well,
a little,
I have to point out that all of the salary comes in project 1, so the salary's all covered for project 2 and project 1. Just that's what I see there,
Okay.
looking at that.
yeah, I think their grant writer just needs a little more training on how to present it more effectively. They probably could get to the end that they wanted if it hadn't been presented quite in that way.
Mhm. Thank you. Anyone else? All righty.
So, sorry, I couldn't get to my mute button fast enough.
No,
Sorry.
you're good.
One quick thing. There's a sentence that stood out, which was interesting to me. Our board is made up of representatives from our community, and no one is excluded if they desire to be on our board, which is admirable. But I think there's a question on how do people find out about your board? I'd love a little clarity on that. Are they going out and seeking diverse voices to be on the board? Of course, I love that they're welcoming of everybody, but I think there could be a little again, for me, it's about clarity on this grant. How does that translate into actions, right? So how does that translate into what they are actively trying to do to diversify their board or to get differing vantage points on their board? So teachable moment, that's going to be the phrase for today. Thanks, Dana.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Okay, anyone else? All right, we'll move on then. And the next one is City of Brighton Arts and Culture. And let's see, they are actually requesting GOS, 2 projects, and visual arts.
My question is this: how
Yes.
much does the work of the City of Brighton Arts and Culture and the Brighton Cultural Arts Commission overlap?
That's a good question. Because they
Do you
definitely,
want to talk to this a little bit? Because I know there's a history here. They used to be all the Brighton Cultural Arts Commission, and then they separated. The BCAC is now the nonprofit, and the city of Brighton now has Brighton Arts and Culture. Is there anything you want to say on that, Dana? You're muted. Dana, you're muted. And obviously your speakers aren't working. So,
and
Dana.
she gets that fixed,
All right.
that's good. But for me, and I'll just kind of elaborate a little bit while we're waiting for Dana, but they do not have the diverse funding, basically. And maybe it's because of the first year of the separation. I don't know. But they are heavily dependent on SCFD, and the funding sources are only SCFD, the city, and the lodging tax, for them. So, and their board, to Larry's point, also is city staff and city council, which kind of, and I think, I don't, I'd have to look again, but I think maybe I saw 2 volunteers on there, but I think they were also from boards that are actually linked to the city. So,
My apologies, Madam
Right.
Chair. I was muted and I was wondering why are they talking over me? Because I was muted. Um, the city of Brighton is complicated, but just to make it very concise, city of Brighton was basically doing the administrative work of Brighton Arts and Culture. And at some point they decided to split. And so the city of Brighton Arts and Culture, they are under the umbrella of city government. They are an agency of local government. So yes, they do not have a government or what am I trying to say? A government or governing, sorry, it would come a governing. Aaron, I see you laughing at me. I'm having, it's Monday. No, it's Thursday. I'm sorry. It's late. They do not have a governance board. They have a city council who oversees the department. So, so Brighton Cultural Arts, they are a nonprofit 501c3. You will come across their grant in either tonight or tomorrow, or next week. And the city of Brighton has their own grant. I said it way better when I was muted than so.
and I was just kind of trying to fill in a little bit while you were trying to
It
talk.
came out perfectly when I was on mute. So that being the case, they're an agency of local government, so it doesn't surprise me that the city is doing a lot of backfill on their budget. Yes, and we see that quite frankly in a lot of city governments. And again, I go back to Adams County is a little different in the fact that they do have a nonprofit arm, but when you're a city government, you don't really necessarily have the opportunity to do a lot of grants because you're government. But that being said, they might be able to have some earned income through, I don't know, concessions, t-shirt sales. I have no idea. But typically when you're a government, you do see backfill from the city to make up the shortfall in their budget.
And just to add to that, as somebody who works for a city, not this one, but who works for a city, people don't often donate to cities because they pay taxes. So they feel it's very difficult for city municipalities to fundraise. So
Right.
yeah, that's my own thoughts to this council. But while I'm here and I've stolen the mic,
Yes.
I think there's some opportunity for clarity in terms of it says could there be an example of how something was adapted, a program was adapted or something because of the quantitative and qualitative metrics capture. So they mentioned the staff meets on a regular basis to evaluate the programs, refresh. I'd love just an example, just for me, I'd love an example of what that actually looks like in the real world. I think it's a great sentence. It would be great to have a little clarity on that just to help me put it in, because the narrative is helping me put the projects and the GOS in perspective, right? So some of that would be great. Yeah, I wrote opportunity for corporate sponsorships, but I know it's tough. I know it's tough, and kudos to them for the city ponying up. Project One, I'd love a little more clarity in their project revenue. Again, they've got a $12,000 other category,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine, obviously, but it's a little tricky when I see that that's the second large, that's half of the SCFD request, and it says other. I would just love a little clarity if that's possible, just because it's so big. And then their expenses, I feel like some more clarity in their expenses. They have salaries and wages. I know we talked about this a little bit before, Dana, but wouldn't the salaries be available through the city? Aren't those city salaries? So I think anyway, I've just got a couple questions about that since it is a city government. It feels like, they're asking for GOS, which is salaries. And again, I hear you, Dana. I see you. It's just
No,
something
actually,
that
Aaron, to your point, that does make sense because this is an agency of local government.
and they're salaried employees through the government. So according to their staffing chart. So, I understand GOS going to salaries, that sort of stuff, but if you're asking for a project grant, that feels a little funky to me. Maybe it's not. Project 2, again, same thing, other category. This is now 25,500. In other, you got $45,000 in salaries and wages, in your expenses. To that point, what movies have been selected is, they're talking about addressing DEIA. Curious what their selection of movies are, all that sort of stuff. So just there's opportunity there for more clarity. And then the public art, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to get other people's thoughts. Is it paid admission into the rec center? Because they want to put art in the rec center, or is it around the rec? I guess it's
It's
going
in
into the rec
roundabout.
center.
It's the roundabout. It's a
Going
in the roundabout.
into the rec. Okay, so it is publicly available. So they're not talking about putting art in a place where people have to pay. Okay, great,
No,
awesome. That's great, but it looks like it's way over. Is there a 50% cap for art projects, or I can't remember what the guidelines are for public art.
No, it's more, I don't recall, but they're asking for 66%, I believe, 67%.
Okay.
I think
It's
two-thirds.
65%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
So
that-
they're not far off.
Easy.
Okay,
Two-
great.
Right,
2/3 of the total project budget.
Cool.
That's right.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
You probably heard I dropped my paper.
a point of clarification for a confused old guy. When I look at this chart, that's something that we asked them to put those numbers in, administrative and logistics, salary, wages, and the other, so that they have to explain their other somewhere else in all of this. They can't go in and list other things in the chart. Am I looking at this and seeing it properly, or, because I agree with Aaron, but I'm going, where would you put the other? And it just looks like we're forcing them to these categories. And if they put other, they need to explain it. Am I making sense or just babbling on here?
No, you're making sense. And there is, in the financial area where it says you have any, if you want to explain anything, that would probably be the place to maybe expand their explanation on other, in the other category.
But to Jim's point, that's under the narrative, not under
Right,
the
right.
project. So I think that could be a place of improvement potentially for us to give them within the project a place to explain the other, if for some reason it would draw attention. It's the exact same question, right, Jim?
Right.
It's just put it
Right.
under the project and the narrative.
And there's really not an opportunity. Let's see. Well,
Yeah,
there
other
is.
groups are
There is. There is.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't actually put it in there specifically. I mean, the narrative under the budget ask about if you're doing something across this one project across several counties to explain the breakout. I've seen
Right.
other organizations use that opportunity if they have other to put it in there, but it's not explicitly stated, explain other. And so that might be something I'm going to take back to my staff and see if there's any options for that.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
just
for
as
that.
the teachable moment here,
Mhm.
for this group, if there's something that could cause confusion, please acknowledge it and give us some insight. So just having that sense of awareness that this might cause a question. Maybe I could take a little bit of time and answer it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to admit that between this one and the city of Brighton, I got pretty confused. Who's doing what and the overlap and all of that. On the public art project, I just want to say that $158,000 budget, I think it was, for 3 sculptures isn't very much, and they want them to be big and seen. And I just have some experience with that, and I just felt like that seems like a pretty ambitious timeline and budget.
Mhm.
That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Okay. Thank you. As far as the visual arts goes, I like the idea, you know, and the proposal, but I'm just wondering about they actually submitted a supporting document from the city manager, you know, stating that the city will maintain and install the pieces, but it also noted, you know, in part of the request that 33% of the lodging tax will be used along with the requests that they're asking us, but we don't have any supporting documentation stating that, even though, I mean, it's in there, but it's not an attachment, you know, as the one from the city manager.
So
Anyone else?
yeah, I have
Okay.
another question. So isn't it part of development that there's a certain percentage of funds that have to go to some sort of public art? That's part of, you know, building anything these days. So I didn't understand where that money went either. Of these additional sculptures or art pieces that are above and beyond what they originally got when they built the rec center and all of that. So I felt that, you know, again, to echo some of the other people's comments, that more specific detail would have been helpful because it does appear to be the city and the city. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Susan. All right. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the town of Bennett. And they are requesting funds for GOS and one project, it appears.
I'll take the lead on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a lot. I felt like I understood them and where they were coming from the narrative. I think it was great them highlighting, you know, their support of Black History Month, Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Celebration Month, how they're growing those. You know, they're looking at those as assets and growing them again. How does EDIA sort of affect actual decisions on the ground? I thought that was great, and it's really powerful to me as just somebody who reads these. A different, you know, different folks on this committee might feel differently, but I really appreciated that, the actionable items that they included. There was a piece of language that I really loved on this. The high quality workshops, displays, and special events don't require a trip to the metro area, paid parking, or any other urban hurdles for the Plains communities. I liked the phrase urban hurdles for the Plains communities. As somebody who lived in New York City and now lives in Denver Metro, boy, oh boy, do I feel those urban hurdles. So again, it was good language. It helped me understand because I was like, wait, you want to take people from there to to there, but you're providing transportation and you're doing, you know, all of that stuff. So it helped me understand how they were going to use funds, even though they're using the money to go into Denver, you know, not to be in Adams County. It made a lot of sense to me. So kudos to them for using really strong language and helping me understand that. there's a in project one, there's a large other in revenue. I'm assuming that's city funding, but again, this gets back to maybe we need to be a little clearer in terms of the application to help us understand some of those ambiguous things. And I would like to encourage them to apply for a second grant.
Mhm.
I think they've got a clear narrative that explains their objectives and what they're trying to do, and it's a newer organization. I think last year was their first year, I think, as an eligible organization.
Mhm.
Their budgets were very clear to me. I understood what they were asking for, so they have some very modest requests here, um, which I'm going, hey, you might be leaving money on the table. So I'd love to encourage them for a second project grant.
Mhm. Thanks, Erin.
Then,
So the price of admission to Meow Wolf is $12 a person. So I mean, or something. It says on there $50 a person, and I went and looked it up, and it was like $25 or something. But that seemed to be like way out of line in what I saw on their website. So and personally, I was just a little surprised by Meow Wolf being the choice of venue to visit, because we have a ton of SCFD organizations that would welcome, everyone from the town of Bennett. So I was just a little like, didn't quite get that. But otherwise, I love the fact that Bennett is bringing, focusing on culture and trying to get all the people in the community exposed to something. So I thought that was great.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Anyone else? Well, as for me, and as I was reading the grant, and what made me think is because we've been for the years now encouraging all of our organizations to go east and support the easternmost part of Adams County. And I just felt that this was a little creative on their part to go, let's take some of our folks from Bennett and or Adams County and bring them to Denver. And then what they're going to do is after they're at the museum, then they will go back and have a workshop in Bennett. And then they're also going to take the art that's produced from that workshop and display it in the city. So I think that's a kind of a 360 project that, and I have to say kudos to them for doing that.
I'm seeing a slightly different price. I just did a quick little
Yeah, yeah.
search. I'm seeing 40 to $84 as the typical price. I think there's some add-ons potentially, but there are also cost savings if you're a Colorado resident. So maybe they're doing some sort of special lunch or something. So maybe a little clarity on that would be helpful. Yeah, for sure. Um, there was something else that was so brilliant that I had in my mind and it just disappeared.
Very
The Meow Wolf thing sort of made sense to me a little bit because they were talking about doing immersive art classes in Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they might be tying those immersive art classes with a trip to one of the very few immersive museums in the country. So I sort of saw that, but I totally understand what you're saying. There are also SCFD organizations that create immersive art. Might not be in the exact same time frame, but yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Next on the agenda is the Brighton Cultural Arts Commission. And they are asking for GOS and 2 projects. Yes, what? Okay. Sorry, I was having a little trouble with my portal here, so I'm still searching.
I did have one question about staffing. I'm having trouble knowing who Paige is. Who's the main, Paige wrote the grant or is the primary contact, but then isn't listed on the staffing or, um, again, it was just an interesting thing. So Paige Vinzinski, they're not listed on in the staff and board roles. Um, is that, I mean, maybe they're a paid
A contractor?
contractor, but other organizations will often put those positions on. So again, just as a teachable moment, it might be good to put that there on the staffing list, and because you can, I think, list employment status, which is, you know, contract worker or something. Um, the education portion of the grant felt more like a list of achievements and not how they educate the community. It didn't really answer for me how they collaborated with other orgs and artists. So I think that could be an opportunity for the next grant. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. Um, uh, I like for Project One, I think it's a really interesting array of festival offerings. Um, this is going to be an interesting question. At least they're all festivals. So does that feel like a project? I mean, it's everything from their Asian festival to their veterans events, but they all seem to be of a theme. So to me, it didn't ring a lot of bells, but that could be an interesting point of discussion. Project Two, thank you, student art shows. I mean, the fact that they're reaching into a group of 24,000 young people and asking them to be involved in art, I think that's a really cool project. Anything to get younger folks involved and active, I really get excited about. So kudos to them on that project.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is it really 87% of SCFD? They're looking for 87% of funding overall? SCFD revenue of total previous full year was 87%.
Let's see, where did you see that,
That
Susan?
is correct. So what we do is we take the funding that they received from SCFD in the most recent completed fiscal year, which was they 127,000. And that's divided by their total revenue, which of 145.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to double check on Susan, to your point. I'm going to double check to see if they actually got 127,000, because that seems a little high for this organization. So while you all are discussing, I will double check on that.
Okay, because that seemed like a lot to me.
It might be part of their visual art, but nonetheless, it is 87%. I'll check.
Okay.
But it
So
looks
there's
like they might be 14% for this coming year. So yeah, I wonder if that wasn't a visual arts project
right.
because they're sort of back down to earth
Mhm.
this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so
they-
the amounts are, sorry, whoever I cut off.
It's okay.
The amounts received, general operating 34,762. Project 1 was 3,800. Project 2 was 8,100. The visual arts was 25,795, which, by the way, they returned because they decided not to go through with it. Which was 72,000. So let me recalculate that. I don't know what happened, but I'll recalculate it.
All
They
right.
were awarded a significant amount of money, but then they returned a bunch of it. Okay,
Right.
heard.
Correct, but that's only because they decided not to follow through with it.
Right.
Doesn't negate the fact that they received.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
All right.
So a point of clarification, that return money goes into the pot, which we are going to distribute this year?
That is correct. Anyone or any organization that doesn't use the money or doesn't follow through with part of it, and that's where we look at those final grant reports, they have to return the funding. So yes, they returned the 25,000.
And that's already included in our amount that we have.
Yeah, that will roll over into this year's amount.
Okay.
allocated
All right.
for this.
So I was just looking at project 1 and someone might have mentioned it because my screen froze off and on here. But it looks like they have several projects that they're detailing and asking for in one request. So that there's more than one standalone project there. Let's see.
Yeah, but Joyce, when I looked at that, my sense was these are all the same, like the Spring Festival's one, but then there's the Fiber Art Show, the Regional Artist Show, the Artisan Bazaar, which my sense was that's another art show, if you will. These
Right.
are all dealing primarily with probably painters and sculptors displaying their work at the Armory, as opposed to somebody who has a musical event, and a whole variety of things, which is real hard to connect them.
I'm gonna have, because I thought it was different locations too, but let me look real quick. Let's see here. Let's see maybe it is all at the Armory. But still, I mean, they're separate, distinct, like the Asian Spring Festival is totally different than a fiber art show.
Yeah, I mean, my sense was the Asian Spring is probably the only one where there's not an explanation that you could really get out of the box. The rest of them, and maybe it's my implicit bias or is an explicit bias, they're all things they're bringing to hang on the wall at the Armory.
Yeah. But it's at different times of the year also.
Yeah,
It's
but
not such as a music series. It's maybe the beginning of May or beginning of June to the end of July. I mean, but we're encompassing the entire year.
But
Yeah,
Jim, are you suggesting it's for the personal artist gain? I mean, it's like a sale rather than an exhibit. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm
'Cause
sorry.
I was a little confused if it's like a sale of art, versus an exhibit or a cultural enlightening thing. Is that what you?
I believe, even though it's an exhibit, that you can also purchase. But then probably needs some clarity to that, you know, but that's my belief.
Yeah, because if it's like going to the food, to the produce markets that they have in the summer, and then you have crafty people there, that's, to me, that's not what this money is going for, to support.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't get that sense. I got the sense that that these are art shows, and Jim, I agree with you on that. I think the Asian festival might be a stretch.
Mhm.
But to me it felt like a theater season or something, right? So it didn't bother me that they were at different times of the year. They're at the Armory. We have, 5 different art shows where it's kind of like a First Friday thing. People are out and doing their thing, and they're displaying a very distinct set of work, but it's all artwork. So to me, it did make sense. It was cohesive, except potentially for the Asian festival. But then they
Right.
have their kids, their student showcase too, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a good project. So they're trying to
Yeah.
maybe they're just trying to squeeze that one in because it's a cool festival at the Armory. But at least there's
Right.
the through line of the Armory and art and culture. So yeah.
I know.
Well, yeah, and the youth show was at a different venue. It was at
Mhm.
Riverdale.
Right.
And I read that and I went, Riverdale AI? I think that's Al Lessing. I'm not sure who Al Lessing is, but AI just it's become an implicit bias when I see that.
And with Project Two, I just like the idea that the invitation was open to all the schools in 27J, but they actually invited the non-traditional art classes as well as the traditional. So I thought that was pretty open-minded. Anyone else? No? All right. We will move on then to Boulder Opera. And they are, let's see, they are asking for one project, it appears. I think my screen is frozen. I'm frozen.
I see you moving, so it might be on your side.
Yeah.
I see you and hear you. So from our side.
It's me. I hear you now. Okay. I have some issues over here with this computer.
I'd love to say that the contributions and the financial overview matched, which I get very excited about. I know there's lots of reasons that they don't, but the nerd in me just really loves it. I feel like, oh, this all makes sense. Sets my mind at ease. I didn't see an explanation of the projected 2026 deficit. Maybe I missed that. But that in combination with the fact that they have 1 month of working capital, they do have a really diversified contributors list, which I think is great. But there are just a couple of things that sort of raised a flag. So again, that financial stability piece is one of our questions. So, or the financial part is one of 5 questions. So just reminding folks, offer clarity where you can if there are questions, because we only get 5 categories to rate certain things. Project One, I love that it's Little Roses and Thorns. I love that the educational activities are in collaboration with the performance. So they're not just going into the schools and singing a short opera in a gymnasium. They're actually going into the classroom with these musicians. Those singers are incredible musicians. I mean, any opera singer is an incredible musician in my book. and teaching the artists. I know they had a craft for some of the kiddos, and that's great too. But helping the kiddos understand what the performance they're going to see is and what is special about it. That just caught my ear as somebody who understands education. I was like, this is I like this. I did notice it doesn't look like all the schools are confirmed, which I know isn't a deal breaker. They're probably figuring that out. Schools are amorphous beasts. Sometimes getting those schedules can be tough, but some were confirmed, some weren't. So I'm assuming, Dana, that comes to the final grant presentation at the end of the year or whatever, where they'll explain. Yeah, okay. She's nodding her head affirmative.
And
So,
if they change any of those schools midway, they're expected to enter an amendment to their
cool.
grant. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So again, it wasn't a big thing for me. I just noticed that.
Yeah. But to go along with that though, and I thought that was great. I really like that whole idea of incorporating the workshops. But then it appears that at the very end, then they go to a school or somewhere, to have the final, performance. And I'm just kind of wondering about the process and how they choose the school. And maybe they don't even know what school it is yet, but if they did, maybe it would be nice to know that. So, but I think it's a great idea. I really like the incorporation of all of that.
It was very clever because I think it makes it more than just learning opera, like kids can be like, ugh, to make flowers and to do other things. I thought was clever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like the idea that the opera is bilingual, so I think that's a wonderful opportunity for the students also. Anyone else have any thoughts? None? That was our last grant to review today. So does anyone have any other comments before we adjourn?